Welcome to the Dr. Ed Show. I'm Dr. Edmund Sulkowski. You know, you can hear me live every Saturday morning at 9 a.m., 9 to 10 in fact, on AM 1250 The Answer, for shows much like we're going to do today. In fact, my guest has been on my show, the Dr. Ed Show, radio show, several times, as well as being on this show. We're going to talk about something I think most of you are going to be interested in, as winter is transforming into spring and everybody wants to be able to wear a bathing suit. Let's welcome my good friend, my guest, frequent guest, Dr. Rebecca Plute. And Dr. Plute is a concierge physician from her office in Cannonsburg. So she's very easily accessible, and she has her Paragon Personal Care office. Dr. Plute, welcome.
Thank you, Ed. It's great to be here as always.
Dr. Plute and I love to talk, and we're both patients in the office. I'm a patient of hers, she's a patient of mine, and we get to talking sometimes, and we lose track of time. So when I asked you to come on today, we have a specific topic that I think is critical for people, because I think the standard American diet has messed a lot of people up, and people have a tendency to gain weight now because they've changed their whole metabolic processes in their body. And it's not hard. I mean, it's hard to say, just stop eating this or stop eating that or exercise more. There's more to it than that. And we're going to talk about that today.
Right.
So do you agree that you think, I don't want to use the word obesity, because there is a side of obesity that's out there, and I think that's on the increase as well. But just being slightly overweight, have you seen an increase with people?
Oh, absolutely. So just to maybe give a little foundational stuff when we talk about the American diet, some of the specifics about where we went wrong. You know, as far as we developed this food pyramid, we've had all these diets for, you know, when the obesity and diabetes epidemic started to become apparent in the 80s and the 90s, I think everything we did was wrong. You know, we had the diet sodas, and what did the diet sodas do? They increase the inflammatory process, and if you drink a diet soda a day versus a corn syrup, you know, Coca-Cola a day, metabolically, they're still both wrecking you. If you keep those two things in your diet every day, it's going to be difficult, if not impossible, to lose the weight and to prevent the diabetes and prevent inflammatory and weight. So when I talk about the weight and the obesity, I also like to talk about the inflammatory components, because that's a really important part of the diet.
Everybody who listens to the radio show will hear me say this just about every show. Where there's inflammation, there's disease. Where there is disease, there's inflammation. And I think that's been proven through every study that has ever been done. And we talk about weight, but there's a bigger component to all of this, which is diabetes. And you can still be overweight and be healthy, but you're not healthy if you have diabetes.
Right. And when we look at weight and diet and recommendations from various panels, we find this almost nefarious influences. Like, for example, right, for generations and generations, we used butter and lard to prepare food as a fat supplement in the diet. And all of a sudden, Crisco, comes about. And what is it? It is junk from the industry.
It is junk from the oil industry.
Right, it's junk from the oil industry.
Actually originally made to lubricate machinery.
Yeah.
But we eat it.
Right, because they did an incredibly great marketing scheme that said, this is healthier.
And it's all white. It can't be bad for you.
Right. It looks good. And, you know, and all of a sudden, how did they promote it? They promoted it on the radio. They promoted it in the paper. They promoted it in recipe books. You know that. You know.
Well, they started saying fat was bad for you.
Yeah, fat was bad.
Natural fat, and they started making food and taking the fat out and saying you're eating fat free. And what did they do? They put high carbohydrates, high sugars in the food, otherwise you wouldn't want to eat it.
Right, right. And at the same time, the grain industry, Kellogg's, you know, Nestle and everything like that, it's cheaper and you can more mass produce grains than animal products, right? Animals, you can only make that farm so big and still have your animals healthy. And then you had this other nefarious thing come through that say animals are bad for the climate.
Yeah, is that funny?
But if you look at it
I think they call those
historically,
farting cows. That's
right,
bad for you.
You know, prior to the introduction of horses on the Mongolian steppe, it couldn't grow anything. You know, and now that we're learning more about the truth about the relationship that herbivores have with the environment, they're actually reversing desertification by rotational grazing. And now we have this great technology where you can put a GPS fence on the cows. So instead of just having them fenced in an area and you can increase the topsoil by rotating the GPS fence in a way very much like what the bison used to do. So we're actually out west restoring the Great Plains into grasslands from deserted areas. And it's very exciting to me that now, as we're understanding the planet better, instead of saying cows bad, we're like, wait a minute, maybe there's a reason why human beings got healthier when we domesticated cows 10,000 years ago.
Well, nature, it works synergistically together with everything. For example, we breathe out carbon dioxide, we take in oxygen. Well, what do trees do? And what do plants in general do? They take in carbon dioxide and supply us oxygen.
Right.
You know, everything works together. When you upset that, you get out of balance, out of homeostasis, the medical term for being in balance. And what do? You get dis-ease, which is disease, and you get sick.
Yeah. And the plant kingdom needs the animal kingdom, and the animal kingdom needs the plant kingdom, and we need the bacteria.
Well, you know,
they're our friends. They can be our enemies, but the whole digestive process, whether we're eating plant foods or we're eating the animals that ate the plant foods, we still need that biome to get it to translate into nutrition and energy.
There's a biome in your mouth, there's a biome in your gut, there's a biome on your skin. It's everywhere in every cell of your body. And there are, everybody says good and bad. I'd say non-pathogenic and pathogenic. Pathogenic meaning that if it's an overabundance, you're going to get sick maybe. Everybody wants to be sterile. I mean, that COVID-19, or what I call Fauci-19, everybody was so worried about scrubbing their hands and putting all kind of chemicals on them and you know, wearing their masks and covering their eyes and whatever, wearing their 3 masks, what all of that was, you know, getting their vaccines, everything that was involved in that thing. If you were sterile, you would die. The idea is not to be sterile, it's to be in balance. In balance,
right. So when it comes to plants, animals, and bacteria, it really is all about our relationships. Right? How are we having?
Life in general, isn't it?
Are we? Relationships matter, right? They really do.
And you brought up Kellogg, but most people probably don't realize or know that Kellogg was a physician, Dr. Kellogg. There were 2 brothers that were physicians, and you know, they had a farm and they were growing wheat, and suddenly they had start supplying the universe with breakfast cereals. Which to me, kind of every time I hear that, you know, I used to love Cocoa Puffs for breakfast, right? But in my opinion, you should never start off your day with a carbohydrate and plain for breakfast for nutrients. You know, that's good old bacon and eggs with butter on them. You know, that's the way I look at it. But they had a product to sell, and they started promoting it as something that was healthy. And there was no health involved with it at all. You know, very little protein, high in carbohydrates. Carbohydrates are sugars. You know,
very quickly.
People don't realize that, and all of a sudden, somebody has diabetes, and it's like, I don't know. I know cancer is like 1 out of every 2 people will have some form of cancer in their life. I don't know. Do you know statistics for diabetes?
It's high.
It's very high.
And it's getting higher. So the thing is what do we do about it? And what I love is we're on the cusp of making a lot of realizations that, one, food producers shouldn't have excessive influence on government. right?
Well, it's all about the dollar.
Right, and we have to be careful with advertising and stuff. And then the other thing is when we look at it, we say, well, we got here right because you have a lot of indigenous populations that were on a primarily protein-based diet. Those are the people with the worst diabetes when you introduce excessive refined sugars and refined grains, right? Now, when you mix in unrefined sugars and grains, that doesn't have that negative. And what I mean by unrefined sugars and grains, right? An orange is an unrefined sugar. But you haven't messed it up.
But
right?
Orange juice
is just taking the fiber out, which is taking your slow release.
Making a refined sugar.
And now you're into a biome and hormonal disruptor.
So what happens, to my understanding, and you can talk a little more about it, you eat an apple, for example, or an orange, and you're eating the fiber along with the carbohydrate. So the fiber slows the absorption of the and breakdown of the carbs.
Right.
So that your body isn't inundated all of a sudden and gets overwhelmed. So you slowly over time absorb it. If you just drink orange juice or apple juice, then you're just flooding your body, and then you have that insulin response, which then creates a problem.
Yeah, and our high fructose corn syrup is
Takes
10 times as
level.
bad, right?
Yeah.
And so what happens is when that stuff hits our body, it causes a hormonal disruption. It wasn't meant to be. Like when a protein from eating a steak hits your gut knows what to do with that. It's been doing that 50,000 years. The guts that came before you genetically all know what to do with that. When your gut eats some whole oats, it has a pretty good idea what to do with that, and it's got a little extra bacteria in the biome to help it. And all of that, and the glucose and the peptides and stuff that are released in the digestion of those more natural foods, your pancreas knows how to deal with it, your small intestine knows what signals to send to your pancreas. But all of this unnatural stuff tells the gut and the pancreas and the liver things that aren't true. So for example, when you drink that high fructose corn syrup sweet tea and it hits your gut will send a signal to the pancreas, oh, we have a huge sugar load coming for the next 5 hours. Actually, you only have a huge sugar load coming for the next 10 minutes, but the pancreas doesn't know that, so it'll release enough insulin for the next 5 hours. And then you have a stressful situation because the blood sugar starts to drop, you get counter-regulatory hormones, and if you do this day in, day out, that's what will cause type 2 diabetes.
So what is a hormone?
What is a what?
A hormone.
A hormone. A hormone is a protein, a molecule, that will send signals in the bodies.
So they're messengers.
They're
telling something what to do.
Right.
So insulin, I always consider insulin as the fat hormone.
It is.
So if your insulin level is high, your body gets overwhelmed and says, well, I got to do something to protect you from this high level of insulin. What do? I store it in my fat cells, which become bigger.
Yeah. Yeah, and everybody knows that insulin lowers the blood sugar, right? But it lowers the blood sugar by pushing excess sugar into fat cells, right? But if you get into those states where you have these foods where you're having high sugar and then big drop and high sugar and big drop, you eventually get to the point where the fat cells want to ignore the insulin a little bit, and then you need more and more insulin to tell it to do the job. But the more insulin you have, the more fluid you retain, the more cortisol hormone that says, hey, we need more places to store fat, and the more that the body's like, oh, well, we're in a storage time. We should tell this person to rest and not be active and not get things done.
So my understanding from my medical training was you're born with a certain amount of fat cells. There are different types of fat cells depending where they are on the body and what organ and so forth. And someone who is thin has flattened fat cells, and someone who is heavy
has fluffy ones.
Has ballooned fat cells. Not that they have more. And then my other training said, additional training within that said that if you, let's say, liposuction fat cells away, you're technically removing them, but your body will, over time, replace them.
Yeah.
And I don't think people understand that concept, that you either have an inflated fat cell or a balloon fat cell. And what are you doing to cause them to inflate?
Right.
And I think the biggest culprit is some source of carbohydrate.
Yeah. And you know, the issue with carbohydrates is you will be hungrier, your stomach will expand to accommodate more and more, and you'll get into this cycle. Now, it's not that all carbohydrates are bad, and I think genetically different people probably have different optimal balances of their protein and the carbohydrate. But so if somebody says, you know what, I need to get healthier, I would love to look better, feel better, have better energy, have lower risk of arthritis, lower my cancer risk, lower my diabetes risk, lower my risk of premature stroke. And you know, every doctor say, well, lose some weight, right? But the thing is how do we do that, and what are the tools that we have to do that successfully?
So we're talking a lot about food here, and the way food is grown has changed dramatically, especially in this country. And I'll cite an example. Gluten is an issue for some people. I think it's an irritant for all people, but some people really react to it if they have something called celiac sprue.
And the intolerance to gluten is on the rise for sure.
And I think even if you don't have celiac sprue, you have some type of reaction to gluten from the way our wheat is grown and glyphosate's applied to it and all of that. The same people in this country that eat a loaf of bread from a bakery can get sick because of our wheat, can go to Italy and eat a loaf of bread in Italy or
and
pasta in Italy, have no problem whatsoever. They grow their food differently, and they don't poison it with chemicals like we do here. So that should tell people a lot. Look at what you're eating. Yeah. And everybody's organic or not organic, and organic has some, I think, major pluses, but it's not the cure-all either, because it's an organic form of the same wheat, you know. Or a chicken is meant to eat grass and bugs, but they're fed corn, soy, oats, whatever, that they normally wouldn't eat. So that egg is not the egg you should be eating. You know, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, you know, again, fortunately genetically we're very flexible, and there's finding a balance. You know, like my chickens during the summer, they're free range and they don't come around too much to get things, but they find seeds and, you know, so some carbohydrates they need, right? But in the wintertime, if I don't want the hawks to get them, they got to be in for a while. And I bring them hay and stuff like that so they can have some of that natural food in the winter. But you're right, there's, you know, and there's a difference between chickens that are raised, you know, with as much freedom as they can in free ranges versus chickens that never see the light of day and never have a fresh green or a fresh bug.
See, what a lot of people don't realize, Dr. Plute has her hands with the animals. She has chickens, she has dogs, you have sheep. And she's out there in the nitty-gritty with all of this, you know. So, you know, most of us know those animals just because we go to the grocery store. Yeah. But you're actually raising them and feeding them and taking care of them and utilizing them. Yeah. And you wouldn't think that to look at her, though.
But that's my morning workout, is like taking care of the hay and the water and the grain. so chasing down anybody who escaped.
Yeah, so I think it's critically important to know what you're eating and how that is being fed and how it's being raised and what chemicals are in there. And you really have to know how to read between the lines on a package of something that you're buying. I mean, most of us aren't out there doing that. We're not. I'm certainly not raising chickens, and I like to eat eggs. That's my favorite food, actually. Give me an egg and a steak and a piece of bacon. I'm a happy camper. But I don't do that, but I'm very selective on the eggs that I buy or the meat that I buy. But you can easily be lied to, because cage-free and free-range and grass-fed, or grass-fed, if it's not grass-finished, it changes a little bit. if a chicken is, when you see that term vegetarian fed, you want to assume, well, what does that mean? Well, that generally means they're fed corn, oats, and soy, not that they're out there eating grass and bugs. And that's what chickens eat. I was having a conversation with somebody that I know about chickens and chicken eggs, and she said, I'm not eating any egg from some chicken that ate bugs.
You're like, oh, geez.
And that's what they do. That's what they do in nature, you know. Yeah. So it's kind of a mental concept a little bit, but I think the cleaner you can be in the food you eat, the healthier you're going to be.
And one of the things that's very up and coming and maybe more available than it has been before is being able to buy local.
Big deal. That's a big deal.
Like you could go to Fredericktown or 84 Packing or whatever, and you could find which farmers will sell you a quarter cow, right? Or you could go online to Grandview Farms in Maryland. They're a wonderful organization. They actually not only have their own 90 cows, they have a co-op with other farmers in their state where, you know, they've got now their own USDA approved packing plant so that you can actually buy from small farmers as opposed to a large meat packing industry.
Big agriculture.
And a lot of times if you're buying local, and you can almost, like now with the power of the internet, you can Google online, find a local place to buy a lot of your produce and stuff like that, and then you do know what you're getting.
Yeah.
You know, the less time in your life that you have to waste reading package labels, the healthier you're going to be.
Yeah.
You know, but there's also, it's interesting, like if you try to eat something healthy like cottage cheese, right? You could get something like Breakstone that has 37 ingredients in there, or you could get Daisy that has milk, cream, and salt in it, and your probiotics, right? So there is you know, if you have to actually spend time reading that package label and you start getting above 5 ingredients, like maybe just put it down.
That's my philosophy on it, you know, and then you really have to read between the lines. I mean, you have to do that with supplements. If you're supplementing your nutrition through nutraceuticals, you have. That's why I tend to like to recommend going to Jeffrey's drugstore, because pharmacist Brian King vets those products that he sells there and that they sell at Jeffrey's. It's not just waiting for the representative to come and say, here, we'll give you a deal on this and you can resell it. You know, he's looking at the ingredients in it and the quality of the manufacturer, because let's face it, not everything is made the same. You know?
Well, and that's another place too. They have a compounding section.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time.
And you know, they have some of the things that are up and coming. They have the peptides like the NAD+ and the Samoralin, and they also do a compounding of a GLP-1, GLP-2.
We're really going to get into that.
Yeah, we're going to get into that we use for weight loss, that is kind of nice because it very much mimics a human hormone that got overtaxed in this whole American diet thing we've been talking about. So while you can restore a healthier, balanced diet, and you can learn about that in the process, you know, hormonally, if you can go back to a healthier, wind back the clock, so to speak, on the metabolic credit card, undo the damage that the high inflammatory, high refined carb diet did, then you can reverse diabetes. You can reverse, if somebody's already diabetic, many of the risk factors of kidney damage, heart damage, things. And I started working with this GLP group 18 years ago was the first time I ever prescribed a GLP, and it's completely changed my life expectancy, how well my diabetic patients do, how they do with their weight, how they do with end organ damage.
It was strictly a diabetic medication.
Yes.
But that's changed in the last 5 years, 4 years, 3 years?
For me, it changed 8 years ago, but I've always been one step ahead.
Yeah, you have been. So the idea, like people say, well, I exercise, and I think exercise is important. I do it all the time.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think that's the key to weight loss. It helps your metabolism, it gets rid of waste products, it tones your muscles, it does all of that. You'll lose a few pounds, maybe. one of the things you're doing when you're exercising is you're not eating, you know, so that's going to contribute to that. But it isn't, in my opinion, exercise. It's exactly what you're eating and how much of what you're eating that you're eating.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, even when you're eating. If you eat late at night, you tend not to digest that food, and you're going to bed and you're going into hibernation mode, and you're getting more of the whatever in your system that isn't being digested and eliminated when you do something like that. If you eat something in the morning, you're working that off, it's being digested, your body's in that mode to work. So I think there's times, I think there's things with intermittent fasting that's important. So what are your thoughts on intermittent fasting?
Intermittent fasting, and it's very interesting because depending on what you are, what your lifestyle is, maybe what some of your own genetic tendencies are, which schedule works the best for people can be highly variable. But part of that is the mental thing of not eating constantly. That fasting has benefits, right? Even when you look at culturally, you know, religions that are thousands of years old, it's very interesting that the religions of the populations that have been the most successful in development have fasting structure in them. Even if it's only a once a year for 6 weeks, like the Christian religion, that fasting resets our impulses, resets our metabolic ways of working, and is associated with a longer, healthier lifestyle and better improved brain chemistry.
It actually helps to rebuild stem cells.
Yeah.
I'm actually having a fasting day today.
Okay.
Dr. Plute, we're going to take a break here in a minute, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about some of the medical aids that can help you to maybe jumpstart weight loss.
Yeah.
Before we do that, where can people find Dr. Plute?
1 North Central Avenue, Suite 400, Canonsburg, Pennsylvania. I can be found on this wonderful internet I was talking about at ParagonPersonalHealthcare.com, or you could just Google Dr. Rebecca Plute, and my office number is 724-746-7030.
And you're a concierge physician.
Yes.
So that's basically an on-call physician through a subscription. Is that a good way of saying that?
It's a direct care.
Direct care.
People pay me directly instead of me going through the insurance. And we very much tailor their visits in a longer, more educational, more shared decision-making process than they're able to get through the 15-minute, like, rush them in, rush them out insurance-based models.
Yeah, and that's most of medical care these days. And I know you're accessible because I've been with you many times, and there goes that phone, and it's a patient calling you about a question or about an issue. And that's the difference between actually personal care and general care, I guess. You know. We're going to take our break, and we'll be back with Dr. Rebecca Plute. We're going to talk about maybe jump-starting weight loss through some medical treatment. We'll be back. Welcome back to the Dr. Ed Show. I'm Dr. Edmund Sulkowski, and we're here with Dr. Rebecca Plute talking about your health and your wellness, and we're focusing today on getting in shape, losing some weight, reversing your diabetes. They're kind of all related. Dr. Plute, the first half of the show we were discussing food, carbohydrates, just things in general. But I want to focus on the second half of the show on what we can actually do. I know we can cut back on bad food or cut down on the amount, increase some exercise, do all those things that are all part of a lifestyle to contribute to weight loss. But there are some jump starts that we could do. And when you look at losing weight, you want to lose fat. You want to reduce those inflated fat cells and not so much lose muscle, because muscle weight loss is a problem. You're only as strong as your muscles. And how does that impact a lot of people? Well, a lot of people, when they get older, they fall because they don't have leg strength, or they don't have muscles in their legs. And then that leads to possible death because they break a hip, they survive a hip surgery, and they develop pneumonia and die. I mean, that's a scenario that could very easily happen. So you want to avoid that by being in shape and lowering fat, because there's an association between excess fat and diabetes. So you don't want diabetes, because what does that do?
All kind of bad things.
Like heart issues.
Heart issues, kidney issues, vision issues, sometimes brain issues.
And it loses, some people develop diabetes so badly they end up getting toes and legs amputated.
Amputations, yeah.
And if you start with a toe, you eventually end up with a leg. I mean, it seems to progress
that way. It can be
progressive,
absolutely.
Yeah, so
we need to get way ahead of that. Way ahead of that. I love this because I have a patient that started with me 10 years ago, and he had a very reactive medicine regimen where he was on something to treat the blood sugar, something to treat the atrial fibrillation, a blood thinner, and we've gone all the way from that to being ahead of it. Instead of his diabetes getting progressively worse, his blood pressure, all of these things got better. We're now peeling medications off. He's now, down 70 pounds from where he was 8 years ago. And it didn't happen all at once. I would say the first thing we've got to do when addressing our health is to make a commitment. Why would I love to be healthier? Why would I love to, be as mobile and as bright and as energetic as I possibly can for as many years as I possibly can?
Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to be that way?
Well, I think the thing is saying it out loud, realizing that's where you want to go. Because once you know that that's a goal of yours, you can start making investments and sacrifices.
So my favorite word with anything, and especially regarding health, is empowering yourself.
Yes.
You do that through knowledge, but you have to own it. You have to want to do it. If you don't want to do it, it's never going to happen. Yeah. And I think that's what you're talking about. You're empowering yourself to be in charge of yourself.
Right.
And you start you line up those ducks in a row, and then you end up with a result.
Yeah. And so often when people come to me and they feel like they've tried and failed and they're in a model of failure, right, I'm able to say, listen, you haven't failed because you didn't have the right desire or the motivation, right? But if you don't have the right tools, you can get exhausted and lose any good intention you have. So my job is to, one, reconvince you that you really can do this and that this really is the choice, and lay out the tool sets for you, get you fitted for a tool that is going to work well for your goal and get you on your way and have you start enjoying some success in pursuing your endeavor to get healthy.
So let's start with a scenario. I'm 30 pounds overweight. I walk in your office, make an appointment, of course, come in and see you, and I say, I want to lose 30 pounds. Of course, I can't lose 30 pounds. I'd go away. But I want to lose 30 pounds. What do you say to me?
Well, I'm going to have a lot of questions. Why would you like to lose 30 pounds? What do you see as the health benefits? What do you know about the health benefits of losing 30 pounds? What is your history of having tried to lose 30 pounds before?
Okay, so if I'm on certain medications, is trying to lose weight a bad thing?
No.
No, okay.
And I'm going to ask you what you're drinking.
Why is that important?
Because sometimes the easiest way to lose 20 or 30 pounds is change what you're drinking. If somebody's having a high caloric alcoholic beverage or 400 calorie Starbucks or even 1 can of Coke a day, they're gaining 5 or more pounds a year.
16 teaspoons of sugar in a can of Coke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So So the first thing, like, right, we're going to do an assessment of where you are, what have you tried, what is your intake, what is your output. I'm going to have a lot of questions.
So you're going to want to know what I'm drinking, whether I drink alcohol or not, have a beer, whether, or grain alcohol, whatever that is, what types of food I'm eating, how much I'm eating, how often.
Yeah. And if you're recognizing something in your diet, like a nightly ice cream or something, that you've tried to give up and you just can't get away with, right? You just always come back to it in a moment of weakness or a moment of stress, then, you know, I even have a tool for that, right? If you've gotten used to eating a certain amount of portion and your belly's feeling hungry, if you don't eat that much, and 2 hours after you've committed yourself to a diet, all of a sudden you're refrigerator surfing, I have a tool for that, right? So, you know, I'm very much going to assess what your struggles are and figure out what is going to work best for you.
So some people eat because they're stressed, some people eat because they're bored. I know people that live to eat and other people that just eat to live, and there's a difference there.
Right, and do you know how old that phrase that you just said is?
I don't know how old.
6,000 years.
Is that right?
6,000 years ago in the Book of Wisdom, Solomon said, you should eat to live, not live to eat. That's how long people have been struggling with this idea.
Well, you know, it's interesting. I actually have been with people at breakfast and have been spending the day with them.
Yeah.
And we just finished breakfast and they go, where are we going for lunch?
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, or they come home from their trip and you know every place there is to eat in San Francisco, but you still haven't heard what the ocean looks like. Right? So it can be all-consuming, right? It can get stuck in people's head. So when we start talking about medications, like, I have to tell you, through my career, there's been some bad, dangerous medications that people have used to try to lose weight, and some of them are potentially deadly or permanent heart damage. You know, there are some no good, awful ways of losing weight in an attempt to get healthier, whether it's to look healthier, be healthier, realign your metabolism. We need to focus on doing something that is safe and well and will work with this individual's body and meet their goals.
So I want to lose 30 pounds, but I heard about this drug I can take that's going to knock those 30 pounds off. Is there such a drug like that?
Maybe it's Wegovy, maybe it's Ozempic you heard, maybe it's Mounjaro or Zepbound or Tirzepatide or semaglutide. Those are, in all of my career, the most successful, most applicable weight loss medications there are. They do require a pre-assessment to decide if they're right for you. They're going to be right for most people, actually. The biggest thing that if people want to get, because they're expensive, if people would love to get the most weight loss in the healthiest way possible and get all of the benefits and none of the bad side effects you could get, you need a coach, and that's where I come in. I don't just prescribe medicines. I make sure, whether it's me or Christy that I work with that talks to people, that they're getting coached, right?
Okay.
Because success, when you combine these GLPs, which are going to work on the brain, they're going to work on the gut, and they're going to work on the metabolism of where the sugar goes, whether it goes to the muscle or it goes to the fat or wherever it goes. If you have that medication and the right coach, the chances of success are extremely high.
So you mentioned all those names, Ozempic, semaglutide. I think those are probably the two that most people know. Those are something under the heading of GLP-1s.
Yes.
Which are peptides.
Yes.
So doesn't our body make those?
Yes.
So if our body's making them, why do I need to lose 30 pounds?
GLP stands for glucagon-like.
Okay, glucagon
peptide.
I know is a sugar.
Glucagon is not a sugar. Glucagon is a peptide that helps manage sugar.
Okay.
Right? Glucose is your sugar.
Glucose is sugar.
Glucagon,
but it's glucagon
is a key hormone in metabolizing blood
okay.
sugar. Right? So glucose is important to keep you in that narrow range of just right in the Goldilocks zone, right? It helps keep you from being too high or too low. It helps store some sugar in the muscle and the liver, and it tells you when you can stop eating.
Oh, so
when you have enough.
So if I take this GLP-1, I'm not going to be as hungry?
You are not, for multiple reasons. If you take especially the Zepbound and the Trizapatide that also have GLP, glucagon. So GLP-1 is glucagon-like peptide 1, and then there's glucagon-like peptide 2. The GLP-2 has even more activity in the part of your brain that tells you, I want another one. Whether it's, I want another drink of alcohol, or I want another bowl of ice cream, or you ate 2 hours ago and the brain's trying to decide if it's hungry or not. Like that, there's actually a hormonal thing there.
Leptin.
If you're getting, a message that no, you don't want anything right now, you're going to be more successful. In fact, when it comes to success with any diet adventure somebody makes, whether they're going to try to get healthier with the Mediterranean diet, the Atkins diet, or a caloric restriction diet, or they're going to give up soda, your success is correlated with how many times you have to coach yourself out of a bad idea that's going to take you off the plan, right? The less times you have to coach yourself, the easier it is to stick. So the GLP-2 does help when people are like, I'm going along good, I'm going along for 2 weeks, I'm enjoying success, I blow my success, and then I just can't get back on the wagon. So it will help with that a great deal.
That's messing with ghrelin and leptin. That's the two hormones that tell you whether you're full or you're hungry.
Yeah, so it helps keep them in better balance, right? Because sometimes we're out of balance, when we're having a sugar crash because we had one of those high refined carb meals and 2 hours later our glucose is going down and all of a sudden it's like, oh, I got to eat something, right?
Typically eating Chinese food does that to you because it's a high carbohydrate diet.
Yeah, so Chinese food could do that. And
I ate an hour ago and I'm still hungry.
Yeah, when you've already over-consumed on your calories. The other thing that has happened when you're having the chronic refined carbohydrate diet is your stomach expands to increase it. Like, if you eat fat, you're going to be satisfied, and you're going to be satisfied for a while because your body hormonally responds to chemicals in fat. If you eat protein, your body's going to feel full for a long time. But if you eat pasta, there's nothing in that pasta to tell your body that you've had enough. Absolutely. So your stomach will just expand and expand to accommodate more pasta.
And pasta has some protein in it, but it's mostly carbs.
Right. And the type of carb that it is going to metabolically in an hour tell you to have more. Yeah. Right? So, but one of the things that the GLP-1s and 2s do is they tell your stomach, don't expand to accommodate more food. They literally tell your stomach, do not blow up to fill the tank greater. Stay the size you are, you're full enough, maintain your tone, digest what you got, we're good, don't expand.
So it makes you think that you're satiated.
Right, so when you're sitting there eating halfway through the meal, when you're on these medications, you'll get that feeling that, oh my gosh, I just finished the meal, but half of it's still there. At that point, you just put it away, right? And you won't have that desire for it. And, normally after we finish eating, especially an unhealthy diet, the stomach will just naturally be floppy and expand, but the GLP says, no, you just stay toned the whole time you're digesting this. So things are going to stay in your stomach a lot longer when you're on these medications.
So that means you break them down slower and you absorb them slower?
You break them more completely.
Okay.
Because they're sitting in your stomach acid, but it is taking you longer to digest. And when the stomach's busy digesting, it's not sending signals, hey, I'm empty, put something else down here, right? Because it's still digesting. And it's actually doing a better job digesting. And this is where you overlap a little bit of nature here. Because if you were eating proteins, fats, fruits and vegetables, and minimal carbs or only highly natural carbs, right, it would take you a long time to digest all those things, right? Things without package labeling usually take longer to digest. So the medication is actually overcoming some of the bad things that you may still be eating. And that's one of our precautions with the medication sometimes. Like if you suddenly have a steak and a salad and you haven't been eating that all the time, you're going to want to do half of what you think you should eat so that, you know, you don't overtax the stomach with a lot of food that it's going to take a long time to digest, because we're already telling it to take a long time to digest.
So am I going to change my diet, or I'm just going to eat less of what I normally eat? If
Both, I hope.
Both, I hope.
Both, I hope, right? So you know, early on, 18 years ago, when I first started prescribing GLPs for my patients with diabetes, because for the first 10 years that I prescribed GLPs, it was strictly for people with diabetes. I only started using it for obesity about 8 years ago. You know, I would take them through this coach and say, hey, if you've ever tried to do a diet before and you failed, like now is the time to try to do all the right things, because it's going to be so much easier on this new medication to do all the right things.
So how's the medication administered?
It does come in a pill form, but I strongly recommend the subcutaneous once a week injectable forms. So
you're not injecting into a muscle, you're
just a little belly
bit
fat,
under, much like a diabetic would do
with insulin. Yeah, it's an
so
ultra
it's a little
fine,
short, small gauge needle.
Very small, barely visible kind of needles.
Do I have to come to your office to have those injections?
We teach the injections in the office, but then everybody just does them once a week at home.
And then how often would I see you?
Once a month.
Okay, so if I wanted to lose 30, that's a good idea. If I wanted to lose 20, it's a good idea. What if I just want to lose 10?
It depends.
Okay.
It depends. So, for example, some of our women are perimenopausal. They're 45 to 55 years old. The 10 pounds that they want to lose are almost always that they're suddenly accumulating visceral fat because their hormones are off.
Okay,
right?
so you mentioned the term visceral. Would you explain what that is for our audience? Because there's subcutaneous fats. There's different fats. So.
Right. So there's the subcutaneous fat, which we love, right? That is the fat that is directly like on our hands, that hides our blood vessels, protects them, cushions them a little bit, makes our face look nice and smooth.
That's what makes the vitamin D3 when you're in the sun.
Yeah, we love subcutaneous fat, right? Unfortunately, as we age and as we have certain hormonal stressors and as we have toxic diets, instead of building that fat up, that is a good, healthy kind of fat to have in our body, we tend to build up the fat that is around our intestines, around our heart, around our internal organs. It gives us the pot belly, it gives us the hunchback. That's called the visceral fat. That is the fat that is associated with increased health risks and, you know, heart attacks, strokes, and certain types of cancer.
And fatty liver.
And fatty liver disease.
Yeah, which is a big problem, and I think it's a very much undiagnosed issue with people.
It's increasingly diagnosed right now, and it's a little bit scary how these numbers. And one of the reasons why I've become such a proponent of the GLP-1s too is that they also help reverse fatty liver disease.
So does everybody get the same dose?
No, it's customized.
Depending on your overall health?
Yeah.
Depending on your diet?
Right.
Medications you're on? So you just can't order this stuff online. I know there are services online, I've seen them, that you call and they have somebody in the background just take your name, send you a dose of this stuff, and you pay $300, whatever it is, $500, whatever it is. That's not the way to go. You need somebody like you who looks at the total picture and then develops a program to reach the goal.
Yeah.
And there's a safety factor. What are some of the side effects of negative side effects, not the positive ones?
So if you take this medication and you haven't been coached about how to work with your diet, and you don't have anybody to reach out to if you're suddenly getting more heartburn or you're having difficulties with constipation, and right, you can get vomiting, you can get dehydration, you can end up in the emergency room getting IV fluids. If we have somebody who has a psychological thing and doesn't change what they're eating at all and is really overeating on this, they can vomit so much they can get pneumonia in their lungs. So it does require a healthcare professional familiar with the medication that is accessible to you to get the success. Now, you know, it's like anything else. Can you learn to drive a car without actually like studying the driver's manual? And can you maybe get away with it and just pop it? Well, you could, but
yeah,
somebody
I've
might
seen some
get
of those
hurt,
people
right?
on the road.
Somebody might get hurt. And the thing is you only have one body, and if you're going to make this kind of investment to get healthy, then use the best tool that you can with the right instructions, because, you know, we're talking, if you use this right, it can be such an incredibly great impact. But if you use it wrong, right, it can really undermine your efforts to get healthy.
So I've heard this. Once you start, you have to stay on for the rest of your life, because if you stop it, all that weight's coming back. Is that true?
That is not true at all. So
that's true for the people that don't develop a program.
Right. So but here's how amazing the medication is. If you go on it and you lose your 50 pounds or whatever, right, and you go off of it, within 2 years you'll gain back, if you don't have any coaching, within 2 years you'll gain back 2/3 of that.
Okay, so
but some of it will stay
you're
off.
gonna get about 35 pounds back.
Yeah, some of it will stay off, which is really interesting, because it really is helping you reset some things metabolically. Now, if you have the coach, typically what we do is people get to their goal weight, and then we come with a titration off program. And some people will do a maintenance where they're off the medication most of the year, and for 3 months of the year they're on a low dose, just to kind of, as they, you know, maybe have a couple things start to come back. But the more adherent people are to the new lifestyle, the less likely they are to need any kind of maintenance program.
So the negatives I heard were, once you start, you're on for the rest of your life, so you discussed that. The second thing that I've heard is it has the potential that you could become paralyzed with your digestive tract. Mm-hmm. Is that a possibility?
So for people with advanced diabetes that already have nerve damage, or people on the end of the spectrum with extreme obesity, where we're talking like, you know, 400 pounds plus, that's where that risk is highest. You know, and again, that speaks back to the monitoring. If we're working with people on a low dose, we can see very quickly what their risk is, and maybe we treat them a little bit different.
So it's not a one shoe fits all. No. We have 2 minutes left, and I wanted people to know.
We never have enough.
We never, I know. I want people to know that Jeffrey's Drugstore in Kansas is actually focusing on compounding the GLP-1s.
Right, and they're FDA approved to do it, which is really important, because a lot of the online places, you don't know where it's coming from. They routinely send samples to the FDA and get their compounds inspected to make sure that it's exactly what they intend it to be.
And I know Jerry O'Hara just built a $500,000 compounding laboratory in the pharmacy. Mm-hmm. So it's to me the place to go. Mm-hmm. Because I know people that are on this drug that have no problems. I also know people that are getting drugs from other places and are having problems. Mm-hmm. So you got to be, this is something you don't do lightly, take lightly. Mm-hmm. You need to do exactly what Dr. Plute is talking about here. How do people get a hold of Dr. Plute?
You can go to my website at Paragon Personal Healthcare, or you could call our office at 724-746-7030.
Awesome. I suggest that you do that. And Dr. Plute is often on the show, and a lot of our archives radio shows you can go to, rumble.com, Dr. Ed Show. And you can listen to me live every Saturday morning, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. on AM 1250 The Answer, 92.5 FM. Dr. Plute, thanks so much for coming on. Remember, a healthy pet is a happy pet. When you're healthy, no doubt you're going to be happy. God bless. We'll talk to you next time. Thank you, everybody.